Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Sunday, November 15th, 2020. I am Andrew Hansen alongside Shane Caldwell. This is our Week 10 Running Backs podcast, and it has now turned past midnight, Shane. So it's early Sunday morning. And in Week 10 here, the big theme is we've got some weather games. So let's find some running backs to play.
Oh, I love these weather games here. Let's head up to Green Bay there. It's not quite the frozen tundra yet, but it's going to be a soggy, windy tundra this week here. So we got Aaron Jones at home as a huge favorite at a really high implied total. And going against the Jacksonville Jaguars, I was joking earlier in the week. I don't think these Florida boys want to come up to Green Bay with this cold, and the wind's going to be picking up to somewhere around 40 to 50-mile-an-hour gust, and it's going to be raining in Green Bay, so it's going to be a cold rain. So Aaron Jones is like great in this spot because you imagine the defensive players can't really cut and they're sliding all over the place. Aaron Jones just runs like a deer out there, like he's just explosive, like at Lambeau, like just his change of direction and his footwork are just insane. How good he is with that. He's used to playing in these conditions, and Green Bay is just going to pound the ball because they're not going to be able to hit deep shots against a weak Jacksonville secondary. Even though Aaron Rodgers is good at windy games, this is going to be really bad windy conditions. So this is a game that the game script's playing out good, and you could definitely see a lot of the red zone work going to Aaron Jones. And this is one of those classic Aaron Jones games where you could have like 2 or 3 touchdowns and over 100 yards and still catch some screen passes. And Jacksonville it's just a big mismatch against Jacksonville, really weak against the run. And again, in a bad game environment, in a great game script for Aaron Jones. So definitely, you got to almost eat the chalk with Aaron Jones is what it's looking like here. He's going to be pretty highly owned for a reason though. So I think that you can definitely pay up for Aaron Jones this week.
Yeah, and if you look at the actual line, which we'll give you courtesy of our presenting sponsor, betus.com.pa, go there for all your sports wagering and casino action, and use that promo code CoachTalk, all one word, 125% match on your first deposit. And their line on this one has been steady with Green Bay 13.5-point favorites. The over-under has come down 3 points to 47.5. But certainly looking like a potential blowout on paper for Green Bay. So I'm with you there on Aaron Jones. I think he's a great play. If you want to get lower ownership in that same price range, you could go to James Conner at home against Cincinnati. Another great situation in terms of your home favorite, -7, over under 46. And, the thing is, he had such a dud against Dallas that he won't have high ownership, but great matchup on paper against Cincinnati. They are weak against the run, so you could go there. Anyone else in that upper tier that you like?
Yeah, I think now that Nick Chubb's back and fully healthy, I think he's going to have a good go. I completely understand people are worried about him splitting with Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt's a good running back, but he hasn't shown that he's been that productive in his bell cow role since he's taken over for Chubb. And Chubb has been nothing but, an absolute playmaker when he's played this year. So I don't think they would play Chubb unless he was completely healthy. And I feel like this is a massive workload. Again, we're going to go back to the weather theme. Cleveland, super windy and raining. You're not going to be able to pass much. Houston, the way you attack them is right up the middle. You run on them. They're weak up front. They're weak against the run. Everyone definitely runs all over them. So I think Nick Chubb is going to be looking for a big game here. And even if he's only getting somewhere around 15 to 18 carries, I think he's just going to have a huge average yard per carry. And he's really good in terms of the power running and breaking tackles. And he still leads the league in 20-plus yard rushes this year, and he's been out for how long? He's been injured for a while. So he's an explosive playmaker, the type of guy you want. And, of course, he's going to be their goal line back. I don't think they're going to be able to stop him. I'm looking for Cleveland to have over 30 rushing attempts in this game. So even if it's split with Kareem Hunt, and I think Nick Chubb will get more early down work. So I think Nick Chubb is a guy you're going to get at very low ownership because they're worried about, one, he's coming back from an injury, and two, Kareem Hunt. But I don't think you have to worry about that because what they're going to do in this game plan, you have to look at that's why we talk a lot about game environment. In the game environment, really bad weather, a ton of rushing, and a great Cleveland rushing attack. We talk a lot about them, and a great talented player here. So I think you can pay up to be a little different with Nick Chubb this week.
I'm going to stay in the Midwest here for my next selection in the weather game. I'm going right back to where you started. James Robinson against Green Bay. You can really come up with some production against Green Bay. We saw what Dalvin Cook did. And James Robinson's not the runner that Dalvin Cook is, but he has been that bell cow that Cook has been until last week, where he wasn't as involved in the passing game. So I'm a little bit concerned about Chris Thompson because on DraftKings, you could kind of bank on 8 to 10 PPR points every week for James Robinson just catching the ball. So I'm worried about that. For that reason, I don't like him quite as much as Aaron Jones, but I still do like him in a weather game. I think he's gonna probably get around 20 carries, and that's a great spot from my perspective.
Yeah, and that's the way to keep Aaron the Packers offense off the field, and Aaron Rodgers is run the ball straight at those guys. And if you're going to try to slow this game down, if they're trying to beat Green Bay and pull the upset, so yeah, I'm going to go back to another guy that's fairly expensive. Well, more of a mid-price guy here that also has been out for a little while, injured, but he's coming back, is Miles Sanders. So Miles Sanders.
I thought you were going to do another quiz for our listeners.
Yeah, exactly. I could do it. Yeah, I could do a couple more quizzes. So Miles Sanders is back now, and he's looking really good here in this spot. He's, whenever he has played, even in the tough matchups, he's got it done against, Baltimore, over 100 yards, rushing yards, Pittsburgh, 2 rushing touchdowns. So he's got it done recently in October, and he's going up against the New York Giants. They're pretty good against the run, but I think that, again, I think Philadelphia is going to move the ball, and they're going to be really, I think, scoring a lot in this game, even though it's not a high over/under. I look for Philadelphia to really pour it on in this game. So I like Miles Sanders because he's a true 3-down back. I'm not worried about Boston Scott or any of these guys. He does everything. So he's explosive playmaker in the running game, the passing game. I could see him getting more involved in the passing game this week. So I look for Miles Sanders to have a big game, and he's another guy you can pivot off some of this chalk and get a lower ownership, and a guy that has a really high ceiling here. So now that he's back fully healthy, I like him, and I want to buy him at this price before he has a blow up game. I want to catch the first week that he has a blow up game, and I feel like he's in a good spot here. So I definitely like Miles Sanders, even though it's a tough matchup. I still like him.
Okay. Yeah, a guy in that price range that I like a little better in a better matchup is Antonio Gibson, only 5,600 on DraftKings, coming back into the lineup against your Detroit Lions, number 1 in terms of fantasy points allowed. Juicy matchup here for Washington. So what are your thoughts on this backfield here for the Washington football team against your Detroit Lions?
Yeah, Antonio Gibson, I keep saying he's definitely the most talented running back for Washington. And yeah, it's a pretty good matchup. The Detroit just looks lost half the time. I mean, on defense, so if they can, if they catch them in that defense where they only play 10 players over there, yeah, Antonio Gibson could probably run a deep one, right? So that's what the Lions have been known for lately. So yeah, Antonio Gibson's in a good spot. Looks like he's healthy. They're going to probably have to have a lead, or, keep it close in this game for him to get enough carries, because they don't seem to give him a lot of carries. He's kind of like the Washington version of Jonathan Taylor, basically, where he's super talented and only gets so many carries. J.D. McKissick is kind of interesting, though, if you want, especially in like DraftKings at 4,900, if you want to pivot off some of those chalky plays, because McKissick's shown massive upside in terms of the receiving game here. And again, we're going to go right back to Alex Smith, the check down master here. So, and McKissick is just super quick, and he's a great receiving back. And, again, he's got a little bit of that revenge narrative. He played against for Detroit last year as well. So he's going back to Detroit. Again, he wants to prove them that they made a mistake by not bringing him back as their pass catching back this year. So J.D. McKissick coming off a huge game last week, and I look for him to get a lot of work in the pass passing game. And again, I don't think the Lions linebackers are up to the task of covering him in open space. And, Washington doesn't have that many weapons. So they're going to be just really peppering him and Terry McLaurin with weapons. And they do run 2 running back sets where they'll get both of those guys involved, where essentially J.D. McKissic is like a slot wide receiver there at that point. So I think he's another guy you can get at pretty low ownership and has a pretty good upside here.
Okay. Well, the next guy I want to discuss is known for catching the ball out of the backfield. That's Gio Bernard, but Joe Mixon is out this week for Cincinnati. So in steps Bernard into a great role in terms of touches. The problem is Cincinnati is playing Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has a great run defense this year, so I'm concerned from that perspective, but I love the volume. So Bernard is in play for me at 5,400. I also love the fact that he's got the rest, Cincinnati coming off the bye. So Bernard is in play for me in week 10.
Yeah, he's looked great lately. He's against Pittsburgh, tough matchup, but he's looked really good in the every down role. So yeah, I love Gio Bernard there. Here's a guy that is a true bell cow, one of the most talented running backs in the league, and lately hasn't done a whole lot. So, which is I like that. I like take advantage of the recency bias here. So I'm not going to quiz you any longer here. So this is Josh Jacobs. He's going to be at home. Again, pretty high over under here, 50.5 point over under. Pretty big favorites, 4.5 point favorites against Denver. And what I noticed about Denver is they're kind of decimated. They've had a lot of injuries this year, and now they have Jarrell Casey out. I think he's on the COVID list, if I remember right. So they've lost a lot of defensive tackles and defensive ends. So they're just not as strong up front as they used to be, which means if I'm John Gruden, the game plan is going to be, okay, we're at home. Let's get the lead and just pound the rock with Josh Jacobs. And I talked about earlier in the week, I love the fact that there's this whole story about Josh Jacobs taking splitting work as if it's 50-50 with Devontae Booker, as if Booker's now like a Pro Bowler or something. So I like that idea, that script there, because they're not going to just, Devontae Booker is more like they're passing down, like hurry up type back. And that's if the game script is they're leading here and they feel like they can exploit the Denver defense in the running game, they're just going to pound the rock with Josh Jacobs. So he had 31 carries a couple weeks ago. That wasn't that long ago. So I would expect 25 plus carries from Josh Jacobs in a productive game here. He's one of the best in terms of breaking tackles and running between the tackles type runners here. So I expect a game where 25 plus carries, 100 plus yards, and all he needs 1 to 2 touchdowns. And you're going to get him at lower ownership because there's this whole narrative that he's not the bell cow right now, which he is. So if you hit him in the right game script against a weakened Denver defense at home as favorites here, and he's still super talented, and I think he is completely healthy, or at least as healthy as he's going to be, I like Josh Jacobs here in this spot, and I think he's a great price, 7,500 on FanDuel or 6,500 on DK for a guy that's a true stud running back in a good spot here. So I think you can get Josh Jacobs and you can create a nice advantage here, gain an edge because of the low ownership.
Yes, you can. I've got a guy to discuss here that will be probably higher owned because of the injury news. That's Duke Johnson, and really similar profile to what we've got with Gio Bernard, just in the fact that it's the backup. It's a guy who's known for catching passes. It's a weather game. And so with Duke against Cleveland, slightly better matchup than Gio Bernard, but still not a great matchup on paper. Cleveland hasn't given up a ton of production to opposing running backs. So Duke Johnson, one of these guys who's in play for me this week. The other aspect about Duke Johnson is that you can attack Cleveland through the pass more easily than Bernard and Pittsburgh. So, Duke Johnson, I think, is in a little bit better spot to catch passes, and he's got that big revenge narrative heading back to Cleveland.
Yeah, he wasn't a very happy camper, I don't think, the last few years in Cleveland. So I think he has something for him here. And yeah, I think he looks great as an every down back. So probably more explosive than David Johnson at this point in his career. So awesome. Here's the guy that, I've talked about this guy all year and I love playing this guy. And then I was like, okay, Is he going to be off the radar? And then McCaffrey just can't seem to stay healthy. So it's Mike Davis week. We kind of buried the lead here because if you listen to any fantasy analyst this week, I mean, it's just basically just eat the chalk with Mike Davis. DraftKings put him down at the minimal price, expecting him to only get like a couple carries and take second fiddle to obviously Christian McCaffrey, who's true bell cow. So you got Mike Davis at 5,400 on FanDuel and 4,000 on DraftKings. And I mean, the ownership projections that are coming in are just crazy for a main slate there. Some of the highest that we've probably ever seen with the rapid, dissemination of information here, how quick people get information, how, and all the stuff out there. So Mike Davis in a tough matchup against Tampa Bay, but the fact that he can get the job done in the passing game, and he's the goal line back, he should be able to get a little bit of rushing yards. We're not expecting huge rushing yards, but a prominent role in the passing game and just a ton of touches here. He's pretty much locked in at 20 plus touches if you're counting the passing game here. And they likely will be playing from down so they can get in that hurry up mode and you just get all kinds of garbage time catches. And Mike Davis, when he's been healthy and had this role, he's looked great. He's had a couple disappointing games, but for the most part, if you look at him, for a guy with the type of size that he has in terms of his girth there, he's very actually quick in the passing game, and he's got great hands. So he hardly ever drops a pass. So yeah, I mean, you pretty much just have to play Mike Davis and move on and get different elsewhere here. So you're going to have a lot of very similar lineups here, but it's a necessary play, kind of a free square. I could see potentially fading him on FanDuel, but DraftKings at $4,000 with the full PPR, being that's where most of his production comes from. Really hard to fade him there, but also hard to fade on FanDuel, but a little bit easier. So yeah, so I guess it's Mike Davis week, and we just have to eat the chalk there. That's the only thing I can say about it. Yeah, and I've loved Mike Davis all year, so I'm a little worried about the matchup, but I still trust that he's talented enough to get the job done here.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a possibility to fade him on FanDuel, but really kind of an ideal price on DraftKings, no doubt about it. Now, here's one guy, if you wanted to pivot and get really wild in a GPP, or maybe play him alongside Mike Davis on DraftKings. Travis Homer, 4,000. Seattle going up against the Rams, high total. They're underdogs, believe it or not. The total right now, 54.5. Rams are favored by 2.5. So if Seattle's playing from behind, because Goff et al. Are putting up big numbers and points against Seattle, we've got some injury news with that backfield with Carson and Hyde out. So it still might be a minor committee with Dallas getting some carries and maybe Alex Collins, but I think Homer is the best receiver of that group. And again, if they're behind, I think he could get some targets and get you some nice production at very low ownership on DraftKings. All right, Shane, I want to mention membership for the folks out there who are new to the program. We give out full lineups here on the main slate on Sunday, so we'd love to have you join us. We give out a full FanDuel lineup for a cash play. We give out 2 GPP lineups, and then we give out the coach's clipboard on DraftKings with core plays and pivots. So we'll be grinding through those throughout the morning to get everybody ready for Sunday. We give those out 45 minutes before kickoff. So if you want to grab those, just become a member at dfscoachtalk.com. Get a weekly or monthly membership or the winter special for the rest of the NFL season, and we'll get you those lineups. We should mention social media. Shane is available at DET Sports Shane. I'm available at Language Olympic. You can find all of us at DFS Coach Talk. And Shane, you want to talk about YouTube a little bit?
Yeah, YouTube, definitely give us a subscribe and like there, so that way we can continue to provide all this free great information every single week. Appreciate the support here as DFS Coach Talk. We're a newer company. We just started in 2020, the beginning of 2020. So we're newer than some of these other companies, but we're providing great free information, putting in a ton of work to hopefully help everyone out there. So that's why we appreciate the extra support of being able to subscribe and give us likes and good reviews on YouTube here.
Well said, my friend, and great work as always on the podcast. If you missed the quarterback show or the wide receiver tight end show, make sure to watch those. And then also Another reason to hit that subscribe button is and alert button is because we've got the primetime podcast coming out, previewing the Sunday night and Monday night games. So thank you for tuning in to this one. On behalf of Shane Caldwell and the rest of the DFS Coach Talk team, I'm Andrew Hansen, and we will see you next time as we look to crush it in DFS.
Wake up, sports bettors. Sports are in high gear at BetUS.com, so put down the beer and make every sporting event more exciting by putting stakes on the line at BetUS. Earn bragging rights over your friends as you rake in the cash from each week's betting action. But don't settle for any other book. Choose America's favorite sportsbook with over 25 trusted years in the industry, BetUS. You need a sportsbook with integrity and longevity, but more importantly, you need a sportsbook that pays. BetUS has your game with action on football, baseball, basketball, MMA, golf, horse racing, and even esports. No other sportsbook welcomes newcomers like BetUS with their jaw-dropping sign-up bonuses. Sign up now with promo code CoachTalk for 125% sign-up bonus up to $2,000. The best in the biz. Now you have the best book in the business with the best DFS provider in the business, Coach Talk. Create your account to make point spread bets, futures bets, prop bets, entertainment bets, live bets, and more. No other sportsbook is as committed to their members as BetUS. Sign up now and get in on the winning side of the ball.